The night you realized they never feared losing you is the night power slipped through your fingers. You sat on the edge of that quiet street, headlights washing over your scars, replaying every hollow apology they spat when you called them out. Not one syllable carried regret. The echo of your own silence crushed you harder than any insult. In that moment, you felt exposed, stripped of illusions, stripped of value you once begged for. They slipped past your boundaries so elegantly you almost applauded. 1,000 silent concessions until you became a ghost in your own life. You remember the emptiness spreading behind your ribs, like a slow death. Not because they hurt you, but because you let them. And now you're here, listening to the crackle of distant engines, wondering when respect turned into permission. They never stopped to wonder why you spoke so little. They only noticed the absence of your defense. You think you're alone, but you're not. Every raised eyebrow in a crowded room, every "why so cold?" tossed at you by someone desperate for control. They're all fragments of the same betrayal. Those moments crystallize into a truth. Power isn't given. It's reclaimed in silence. When you stopped justifying your worth, they began to doubt theirs. You felt the shift deep in your chest, colder than regret, sharper than revenge. You want answers. You crave that rush of clarity the moment you see yourself as they see you. Unbreakable, unknowable, unmoved. This isn't about healing. It's about transformation, not the gentle kind whispered in self-help lullabies. This is a surgical reframe of your instincts, a reckoning. You'll emerge not softer, but bulletproof, and when you do, they'll whisper your name with caution. If you're here for a handshake, leave now. But if you're ready to dismantle every doubt they planted in your mind, lean in. Let this voice be the fracture in their certainty. Subscribe if you dare to witness how detachment becomes your greatest weapon. The first time they tried to corner you in a conversation, you felt your pulse betray you, thundering behind your throat, as if begging for mercy. They asked questions that had no answers, accusations dressed as concern, a velvet glove around a steel fist. You froze. That small freeze was their victory, their proof you were malleable. They smiled, like a predator savoring the twitch of prey. In that instant, you learned humility tastes like ash. Their voices overlapped. Old friends turned prosecutors, former allies turned jury, each syllable a nail in the coffin of your confidence. They circled, calibrating your reactions, sniffing for weakness. You flinched when they mentioned your past failures, your absent loyalty, the nights you stayed silent while they screamed. Your silence wove a tapestry they draped over your shoulders, heavy with implied guilt. You bowed under its weight, swallowed the lie that you owed them explanations. A man once told me, truth is the last refuge of the defenseless. You see now how he weaponized it. Every confession, every admission, a link in the chain they used to tether you. They never needed your trust. They needed your admission of fear. And once you gave it, they laughed behind your back, whispering about how easily they bent you. Feel that ache in your chest? That's the space where fury should live. But fury demands expression. They punished you for your voice, so you learned to mask the tremor, to speak in measured tones. You mastered calm. They applauded the illusion of control, never suspecting the storm roaring beneath your skin. Their applause felt like approval, but it was validation of your captivity. You stayed because you wanted to be one of the crowd, to belong. You didn't recognize belonging can become a cage. You thought respect would follow submission, but it fled the moment you knelt. They sniffed your compromise and descended like vultures. Within you, anger boiled without outlet. Righteousness ignited only to be snuffed out by their smiles. They condemned you for being too sensitive, for having standards they never held themselves to. They dismissed your boundaries as overreactions, your disappointment as melodrama. And each time you defended yourself, they rewrote the narrative. You became unstable, irrational, unworthy of their attention. They turned your protests into proof of your fragility, but you were learning. Piece by piece, you felt the armor forming under your ribs, not the bulky, clumsy kind that rattles when you move. No, this armor is silent. It's the absence of attachment. the refusal to feed their illusions. It's watching their faces twist when you no longer react the way they expect. It's understanding that silence can be louder than any outburst. They said you'd never thrive without their approval. They punctuated every conversation with reminders of what you'd lose. The network, the reputation, the shallow goodwill they dispensed. You nodded along, swallowing the threat. You played their game. Until the moment you glimpsed your own reflection in broken glass, your eyes cold, your jaw set, and realized you were no longer them. This is where you draw your line, not in the sand, but inside your mind, an unbreakable vow. You will no longer explain. You will no longer apologize. You owe no one the story of your scars. You will sit across from them, breathing evenly, letting their words roll off as rain off a shield. You will hold the shape of your power in the silence between sentences. And when they lean forward, expecting that familiar twitch, you will remain still. They will search your face for that hint of weakness, that flicker of doubt. They will not find it. Instead, they will find you are empty of their lies. You will be the fracture in their narrative, the question they cannot answer. Experience this moment. Close your eyes if it helps. Feel your breath in your chest. Sense the quiet but thrumming force that lives behind your sternum. This is not rage, it is discipline. It is containment of every storm you ever felt, focused into stillness. It is power they cannot touch because they cannot name it. In that stillness lies your revolution. You don't need to strike to win. You simply need to become unassailable. They will doubt themselves long before you speak. They will twist in their seats, unsure how to break a wall of air and resolve. You will not lower your guard. You will not offer them the satisfaction of a reaction. Lean into this emptiness. Let it fill the hollow demand they planted in you. Build your fortress there. They will erode themselves against its walls. They will burn through every accusation until their words are hollow echoes. And when that day comes, you will stand without warning, not to teach mercy, but to show them the cost of their arrogance. They reached for your conscience like it was their property, demanding confessions, cataloging your motivations, assigning guilt where none existed. You felt the walls of your mind quiver under their gaze, as if every thought would crumble under inspection. But here's a paradox. The only thing they feared more than your anger was your indifference. Every demand for your soul was met with a measured blink, a slow exhale. You gave them nothing. In that refusal, you reclaimed every ounce of power they siphoned. Remember the last time they gloated over your vulnerability, parading it before mutual friends like a trophy? You watched from the corner, lips pressed into a line. They expected tears, tremors, a confession of weakness. Instead, you wore calm like a second skin, unflinching, unreadable. Their smirks faded into confusion. They reached for explanations, but your silence was a mirror, reflecting back their own insecurities. They found no solace in your quiet. They found themselves, and it terrified them. You once believed that transparency equaled honesty, that exposing your wounds bound you closer to others. But honesty is a blade without a sheath. Once exposed, it cuts both bearer and witness. You learned that some truths demand solitude, that vulnerability is a currency best spent sparingly. When you stopped trading your pain for validation, they lost interest. They drifted away, seeking easier prey. And in the space they left behind, you built a sanctuary of self-possession. Feel the hum beneath your skin, the latent force you've cultivated through restraint. It's not aggression, it's quiet dominance. Like gravity, inescapable, constant, reshaping every interaction. They sense it, even if they can't name it. They recoil when you enter the room, not because you threaten with words, but because your very presence declares, "I belong here more than you do." They shift in their seats, searching for their own authority. They grasp at the air, but you're already gone. Think back to the moment they whispered that you needed help, that your detachment was pathological. The auditorium of their judgment rang hollow against the steady beat of your heart. They misunderstood discipline for disease, autonomy for dysfunction, and because they couldn't control your boundaries, they pathologized them. They whispered about you like a secret language, She's too distant. He's unapproachable. They labeled you to diminish the threat of your self-sufficiency. Pause. Feel the weight of that label sliding off your shoulders. Let the cool air of their misconceptions fade into nothing. Because once their definitions fall away, all that remains is the truth you forged in silence. You are neither distant nor cold. You are precise. You are intentional. You choose when to engage and when to observe. Your power lies not in volume, but in choice. They believed that breaking you required force. They were wrong. It required resolve. You tightened your lips instead of your fists. You anchored your gaze instead of raising your voice. You bent their expectations into knots, unraveling every attempt to pin you down. Each time you held your silence, you increased the friction between their world and yours. And friction wears down stone. There is a moment to strike and a moment to wait. You have mastered waiting. The itch to retaliate flickers, but you suppress it, storing its energy behind a locked chamber. That restraint is your leverage. They grow frantic, wanting release for you to lash out, to crumble, to validate their supremacy. You withhold. They collapse inward, gnawed by doubt. They question their own cruelty, their own games. This reversal is the apex of your strategy, to make them doubt themselves without uttering a single word. Now, envision the next encounter. They edge closer, eyes narrowed, searching for fissures in your composure. They will lean in, voice laced with feigned concern. Are you okay? You seem off. You'll pause, fingers brushing a cold cup of coffee. This pause speaks volumes, a silent rebuke of their assumption that you exist for their comfort. You'll shake your head, just slightly, and the universe tilts. They scramble apologies, explanations, emotional appeals. Like moths around a flame, you remain unlit. Their flame gutters. Observe how they fragment under that scrutiny. Their apologies lose conviction. Their concern veers into desperation. They backpedal, offering concessions they never would have dared in your earlier vulnerability. They offer to change, to understand, to bridge the chasm they created. But the chasm no longer terrifies you. It frees you. You decide if you accept their olive branch or let it wither in your hand. You are the arbiter now. This is not cruelty. It is sovereignty. It is the reclamation of every moment you ceded. They taught you that power was something to beg for. You teach yourself that power is something you embody. They wanted to see you break. You chose to transcend. Every bruise they inflicted is transformed into armor. Every slight becomes momentum. Your silence is not surrender. It is presence. Lean into that presence. Feel its texture, the sharpening edge of your resolve. Taste its cool clarity. This is not survival. It is dominion. Every time they attempt to manipulate your emotional tides, you redirect the current. You become the riverbed, immovable, guiding them into unfamiliar terrain. And in that unfamiliarity, they lose their bearings. Let this knowledge seep into your bones. The only defense they couldn't anticipate is your refusal to be anticipated. Your power thrives in unpredictability, in the calm before a storm they never see coming. And when the moment arrives, you don't raise a sword. You unveil the truth of your indifference. That truth is more lethal than any blade. They flinch when you don't flinch. They lean in when you lean back. You are a magnet pulling on their expectations and reshaping them into confession. They crave narrative, that tidy arc of your downfall or submission, but you offer none. Instead, you sit still, your calm a mirror reflecting their hunger for control, and in that reflection, they see their own emptiness. Recall when they whispered your secrets to mutual acquaintances, painting you as the villain of every scene. You heard the laughter, the gasps, the shared nods. You felt the low-grade hum of consensus forming against you. Yet you never confronted them. Confrontation would concede they had the right to your story. You withheld that concession. You let their narrative swirl into dust. Their gossip chased a moving target, one that didn't exist. You dissolved the myth they constructed. They told you vulnerability was a bridge. They praised your openness until they crossed it, then kicked away the planks behind them. You learned that bridges built on exposure are booby traps. You tore down the bridge with your silence. No demolition was necessary, just the absence of repair. They stared at the gap, astonished, wondering how you vanished without a trace. You feel the shift under your skin, the metamorphosis from prey to enigma. Prey bleeds, enigma stands apart. Prey reacts, enigma observes. Prey begs for answers, enigma embodies them. They could never map your boundaries because they moved like a shadow always there, but impossible to grasp. In your silence, they lost their compass. That loss is your dominion. They tested you with proximity, crowding your space in meetings, dropping by unannounced, hijacking your time. You welcomed them once, a courtesy born of habit. Now you close your calendar doors. You speak in monosyllables when you must speak. You send concise messages that feel like steel beams rather than traps. They click read and falter, hungry for nuance that isn't there. You built walls so thin they're invisible and unbreakable. Think of the last crisis they summoned you to, expecting your panic to validate their importance. They conjured chaos as a net to catch your reaction. They mistook your calm for ignorance. They thought you unaware of the stakes, but you watched every move from behind a glass lens. You catalogued their fear, their false confidence, the tremor in their fingers when they thought you uncaring. In your silence, you condemned them. Silence is not emptiness. It is a repository of power. They hear the echo of your unspoken words, and it devours their certainty. Every second they wait for your reaction, they lose a piece of their narrative. You become the void they can't fill. And once they can't fill it, they lose interest. They turn to lesser targets, hoping for the familiar dance of dominance and submission. But those victims are not you. You are immune. You once believed that kindness was strength. They exploited that belief, siphoning your goodwill until you were parched. Now kindness is a weapon sharpened by discretion. You choose when to cast it, not to appease, but to unsettle. You smile at them only when the moment demands it, like a surgeon's flash of steel before the cut. And in that flash they tremble. Feel the weight of this precision. It is your signature. It leaves no scars, only questions. They wonder, what did I miss? When did they become untouchable? They retrace every encounter, hunting for the moment of rupture. They will never pinpoint it, because it was a process woven into silence. Each unspoken word, each withheld glance, each refusal to explain was a stitch in your armor. That armor is now complete. Now, the world operates inside the patterns you set. Colleagues approach you with calculation, allies watch with respect laced with caution, adversaries circle at arm's length. You inhabit a realm of controlled perception. They see you as a constant unmoved by tides, unaltered by storms, and constantness breeds myth. They ascribe you powers you don't need. They tell tales of your invincibility. Those tales are your greatest triumph, because while they spin legends, you live in reality, quietly orchestrating every reaction, every pause. Reality is your domain. They chase its shadows. They mistake myth for substance. They thirst for your secrets, but your secrets are few. Awareness, restraint, choice. And you reveal none. They will attempt one final play. It's always the same. An emotional gambit, the bait of shared pasts, appeals to nostalgia or guilt. They'll frame it as concern, but it's nothing more than another trial. You will hear the familiar cadence, the soft landing of their trap, and you will breathe evenly, feel the tilt of your spine like the axis of your resolve. You will nod just enough to acknowledge their presence, not their power. You will offer no story. You will offer no concession. In that instant, their final stakes are revealed. They are not seeking reconciliation. They are demanding your submission. And you will remain free. Freedom is not a gift. It's forged in the crucible of every slight, every expectation you refused. It is the result of every second you chose silence over reaction. It is the echo of your own sovereignty. Now, carry this calm into the next chamber of your life. Let every step be measured, every glance surgical. Let your presence be felt without effort, like a cool breeze that unsettles the flame. Let them wonder what lies beneath the surface, because beneath the surface is nothing but your own quiet mastery. They will scour every corner of your past, grasping for fault lines they can exploit. They will cling to the hope that beneath your stillness lies the same old vulnerability. They will be disappointed. You carry no hidden fractures. Your power is the absence of bait, the refusal to dance on their strings. In that void, they see themselves unravel. This is the final reckoning. You are not what they wounded, and you are not what they praised. You are the silent pact you made with yourself the moment you stopped apologizing for your existence. You are the 0 point of their expectations, the blank page they cannot fill. And from that blankness, you write your own narrative, one they cannot read, one they cannot rewrite. Feel the distance settle in your bones, a cool, deliberate separation from every manipulation they ever wielded. You no longer play their game because you no longer recognize the board. Their tactics ricochet off your indifference, dissolving into echoes of their own insecurities. You become the question they dread. Who am I when I can no longer control you? Carry this truth forward. Let every conversation be an experiment in self-possession. Let every silence be a testament to your sovereignty. They may try to lure you back into negotiation, but the negotiation is over. You have withdrawn consent. You have reclaimed your story. If you've felt this shift, share it below, or subscribe to witness how detachment reshapes destinies.